All right. So this week's presentation is going over anatomy of a college application. And some of the main topics that we're going to cover will be the timeline for college applications, application do's and don'ts, the difference between early action and early decision applications, the Common App, denied and waitlist information, and letters of recommendation. So one of the first questions is definitely, are you ready to apply? And one of the ways that you can determine that is whether you've actually begun researching colleges and figuring out their application processes and deadlines, making sure that the colleges of interest that you have, you're aware of any information that you're going to need ahead of applying to those schools, and what different deadlines that they might have, in which we'll get into some of those later. And in some of the ways that you can determine whether you have all the information needed to be prepared to apply for college are some of the questions here that a lot of students might not think of prior to applying. Like, do you know your social security number? Have you discussed colleges of interest with your parents or guardians? Have you met with your counselor to make sure you're taking the classes needed to get into the colleges that you're interested in? Have you been working hard to keep your grades up? Are you involved in any extra or curricular activities? Have you attended or made plans to attend a college fair? Have you researched scholarships or financial aid options for the colleges you're interested in? Have you completed the FAFSA? Have you taken the ACT and SAT? And have you visited one of the colleges on your list? Or have you already started applying to colleges? Once you get into that process, you'll start to realize how much information that colleges are requesting of you. And it's very important to try and get ahead of that before starting the application process. So some ways to think of that is creating a schedule and having an outline of what you need to do when filling out college applications. Of course, it's important to stay on schedule. And in order to do that, you need to know the deadlines of the colleges that you're interested in. And not only their application deadlines, but their documentation deadlines once you start the application process. Making a list of all the tasks that are needed to be completed and getting up-to-date information so that you can get ahead of the game. Making sure that you're not going off of what you read last year, that you're looking at the most up-to-date information on your university. They can change from year to year, so making sure you have the most up-to-date deadlines for your college of choice is going to be vital. Most people would apply during the fall of their senior year. Applying early avoids stress and potential technology glitches. So if you need letters of recommendations, budget time to request those letters, time to speak with your teachers, counselors, coaches, or anyone that you think would be a good source for your letters of recommendations. And keep in mind that it's going to take a while for them to get that back to you. So having a schedule and sticking to it is a great first step when deciding on how you're going to prepare to apply for the colleges you're interested in. Also, figuring out what you'll need for those applications. Are there any fees that you're going to need to be aware of? Have you spoken with your school counselor to see if you're eligible for application waivers? Excuse me. And have you spoken with your school counselor to see what additional documentation that they might be responsible for submitting? For instance, your official transcripts will have to come directly from your school. Your test scores have to come directly from the testing company that you use, whether that's the ACT or the SAT, goes directly from that testing agency to your school that you're applying to. So making sure that you know everything that you need in advance will make the application process less overwhelming, and you'll feel like you have your ducks in a row. Excuse me. Also being aware that not all schools require the same things. Some will require letters of recommendations, some will require essays and personal statements, and some won't. So being aware of that and knowing what work you're going to have to put in to complete these applications is going to be important too. Also being aware that there are certain immunization records that most universities and colleges will require you to turn in. And that's something I've seen stump a lot of students because you can't even register for classes if those records aren't in. And if you don't know how to get those, know what doctor to talk to. If you're a minor, sometimes you will have to have a parent or guardian sign off on things for you. So making sure that you know what information is needed and how you can get it is going to be something that can make the process less stressful for you. And also when it comes to filling out the applications, it's important to be aware of what information is going to be needed on your application, knowing what background information that they're going to ask of both your personal education and background, as well as your family education and background. Some colleges will ask if you have any legacy information, which is essentially asking if your parent or grandparent attended and graduated from the school. Knowing that information is going to be important to potentially find out scholarship options or things like that that you'll need to get into later in the application process. Excuse me. And also making sure that you take your time and not rush through applications. There's extra time and attention needed to complete college applications. Making sure that you're researching the requirements to save time and stress during the application process. Don't rush through applications. That's the best way to avoid typos and grammatical errors, and make sure your information matches as much as possible. And that also goes with making sure your information matches across various forms and documentation that you're filling out. So that includes your application, your transcript and test scores, and your FAFSA, making sure that those records match, at the very least, that your name and everything is spelled correctly, your birthday and everything is in there correctly, and that the general information matches so that the technical system of applications can process your work a little quicker and easier without having to come back and ask questions or additional information. And don't be afraid to ask someone for help for proofreading. After looking at the same things over and over, it's easy for us to get distracted and miss over typos. And you might even not even realize that you completely missed a word in a sentence and therefore it makes no sense. So having someone that is willing to proofread your work is definitely something that I would recommend. Review each section for accuracy and allow time before the deadline so that you can step back and come back later to review your applications as well. And also keep track. If you have something that works for you, whether that you like good old regular to-do list, if you're savvy in Excel and can track things in there, whatever would work for you. There's even apps that you can use to help you come together and have an application tracking process so that you know what steps you've completed, especially if you're applying to multiple schools, to help you stay organized and on top of everything. So this is a sample guideline of the timeline for college applications. Don't be worried if we're, as you know, we're already in October, and if someone watches this at a later date, some other months might have gone by. That doesn't mean that you're completely behind or that you should stop now. It just means that you definitely need to go back and make sure that the things from the previous months have been handled too. You can't just skip all the way to the end of the road and think that everything is handled. Just make sure that you're backtracking too, to make sure you have all of the information that's necessary. So it is suggested that before your senior year that you already kind of have an idea of what schools that you're interested in, that you've already visited those schools, looked into their financial aid options, and registered or prepared for the ACT and SAT if you haven't already taken it. It also is suggested to go ahead and look into outside and local scholarships. If you haven't, again, though, there's no time like the present. Go ahead and work those things out and try and get as much done as you can and schedule the time so that you can stay on top of things. Through September, it's suggested that you meet with your high school counselor to discuss applying to colleges of interest, start the checklist for each college, go on college visits, attend open houses, do whatever you can to gain more information so that you can make a confident choice on the schools that you want to apply to. And then for October, the FAFSA opens. So the first step that you want to do is go ahead and complete and submit your FAFSA. Request letters of recommendation, write the first drafts of your scholarships and application essays, and try and stay on top of that stuff as much as possible. If you haven't completed the FAFSA already, definitely recommend going ahead and getting that done, and going ahead and looking into what documentation and paperwork that you'll need to complete the FAFSA too. And then November, we've got submitting completed applications, finishing your essays and going ahead and submitting them, following up on any missing recommendation letters, completing and submitting financial aid applications as well as scholarships. And that specifically is targeted to completing and submitting financial aid applications to your colleges of interest. Most universities have their own scholarships that they will award to their applicants and those who are accepted into their programs. So you can get a head start on, usually you can get a head start on those scholarships and financial aid applications. And then in December, finishing up any remaining applications. Hopefully by that point, if you got ahead of it, you've already heard back whether you've been waitlisted or denied on some, and you can take the time to apply to those safety schools. You can also take the final SAT and ACT test if you need to, and have those test scores ready to go before you make your decision in May. In January, if your school requires it, you can go ahead and make sure your mid-year grades are sent out. Let colleges know of any new honors, leadership roles, or accomplishments that you might have had. If your financial situation has changed significantly since you completed the FAFSA, this is a time to let your colleges know. There may be extra funds available to assist you, and you can keep applying for outside and local scholarships. And for February, contacting colleges you've applied to ensure that they've received everything that they need from you, any required documentation, file your taxes for your future FAFSA applications, because those are needed every year. They don't stop until you decide to be done with your college education, and making sure that you're on top of anything that's related to your final decision process and acceptance to your schools. In March, you should be hearing from your colleges and knowing whether, whether you've been accepted. It's important to review everything that you receive from those colleges very carefully and take action on any tasks that need to be done immediately. If you want to go ahead and revisit colleges to make your final decision, and also don't forget about your current schoolwork. The school year is not over yet. You still want to finish your senior year strong, and don't let the excitement of what's next let you fall back on your current responsibilities. And then for April and May, financial aid awards are usually sent out by this time, and you'll be able to compare the awards and make a decision by May 1st. You'll be able to notify other colleges that you won't be attending, take any AP exams, and request your final high school transcript to be sent to your college of choice. Excuse me. So this is a lot of information and a big timeline, but there's plenty of things that are on it that are completely doable. If you break it up like this, it makes it less overwhelming. And it's tasks that you can mark off as each month goes by to help you stay on top of things. And here are some simple do's and don'ts for college applications. Excuse me. Do not apply the day that applications deadlines are. That's one way to potentially get caught up on applications and end up getting kicked out because you got timed out, or realizing you didn't have all the information you needed and you're rushing to try and get it done. And the day of, that's almost impossible for some of the information that you might need. Do ask people to proofread your application before you submit it. And periodically proofread your work on your own. Give your high school counselors a list of colleges in which you've applied. That way that they can help you through the process and they can help you stay on top of things and remind you of, hey, have you heard from XYZ school and things like that. Don't apply online as well if you're already sending in a paper application. You don't have to do both. Sometimes that can actually delay the process. And I've even heard of students who did things differently on one application and got denied and got approved on the other one, or got accepted on the other one, and that caused other issues due to misinterpreted information and things that didn't add up or weren't the same. Do not treat an online application casually by using the same language as texting or emails. These are professional documents that you're submitting that are used to determine your ability to excel and achieve what you need to accomplish to be a successful college student. So don't take the language that you use on there lightly. Take it seriously and stay professional with that. Do print and save a copy of your completed application and the confirmation page after you've submitted the application. It's good to keep records of everything so that you know what you've done, and if anyone comes back and says we needed this from you or we didn't get it in time, you have documentation of where you submitted stuff. Do not compose your essays or personal statements in the text box within the online application. Some people do this and they do just fine. One reason that it's suggested not to do this is that technology is not always reliable. Things time out, things don't save. You might not be able to see your typos, or if you're someone who is reliant on, can't think of the word now, word check or spell check. If you're someone who's reliant on spell check, having stuff underlined in order for you to know that you misspelled something or messed up a few words, or there's a grammatical error, it's best to do those essays in Word or something that you can do all your editing in and then copy and paste it into the online application. Do create easy to remember usernames, passwords, and pins, and keep them in the safe place. Every single year of my college career, I had to reset my password for my FAFSA. I don't know why I made it so complicated for myself, but every time it came around to redo my FAFSA, that was the bane of my existence, because I had to constantly look for my PIN. I had to figure out what my FSA ID was. I had to do all of these extra things that if I would have just kept track of it and chose easy to remember, but still secure information, that would have made the process a lot smoother. And don't think that all college applications are basically the same and that you can breeze through them easily. Each college has their own unique needs and information that they're looking for, especially if you're applying to any specialty schools like SCAD, making sure that you know exactly what that college is looking for and not just trying to have a cookie cutter college application that's going to be sent out to them all. Unless you're doing something like the college app, where one application feeds into multiple colleges, or the Common App, this isn't the mindset that you want to have when completing your application. And then always provide an appropriate email, and not one affiliated with your high school or one with an inappropriate username. I had an email from middle school that had my crush's name in it. And once I got into the point of getting ready to apply to colleges, I changed it to first name, last name, and at Gmail, and simplified everything. And that's still my professional personal email that I use for everything outside of things. Having an email that's like chasing the bag at gmail.com is not something that you want to have as an email that you want to be taken seriously and professionally as you go into adulthood, whether that's for job applications, college applications, or anything. Having a personal professional email that you can have and give out to anyone without them looking at it sideways is necessary. And after high school, you no longer have access to your high school email. So using that as your point of contact for college applications is not a smart idea, because you might not hear from them or get the information that you need, because you'll no longer have access to that email. So there are some major differences between certain terminology and applications that could be considered applying early. One of those is early decision, which is a type of admission that is binding. You can only, excuse me, when you apply, you sign an agreement to attend the college if you're accepted and offered financial aid. So you can only apply to one college or university as an early decision applicant. Applying to other colleges as a regular applicant is fine, but if you're accepted to your early decision college, you have to withdraw all other applications. So if you're going to do an early decision application, it needs to be a college that you are completely sure about attending. And since that is such a strong commitment, submitting your strongest application you can before the deadline is what you want to do if you're going to do an early decision. Some colleges even offer 2 early decision deadlines. So again, being aware of what is offered at your college of interest and what their deadlines are and what their requirements are is something that you need to be aware of, especially if you're trying to increase your chances of acceptance. Another form of early applications is early action. This type of application plan or admission plan is not binding. You'll find out whether or not you've been accepted earlier, but you'll still be able to wait until May 1st to notify the college of your decision. You would be able to compare different colleges' financial aid offers and have more time to make a college decision. Applying early action to more than one college is allowable, so you don't have to be as strict about the type of applications that you're filling out if you're doing an early action. Not all colleges offer early plans. Some even just might have a early deadline for admission or scholarship consideration. And most colleges have rolling admissions, meaning that the first applicants are the first to be considered. But if you do take the route of applying early, make sure you know what you're signing up for and what kind of commitment you might be making. So another big thing that we like to encourage students in is something with the Common App, which is essentially one application for multiple colleges. And I have listed on the screen the different colleges in Georgia that are included in the Common App. So if you see one or more, particularly more, of colleges that you would be interested in, doing the Common App provides you with the opportunity to simplify the process and collect all of your information and put it into one application. So you don't have to keep repeating your background or education and activities or test scores over and over again to every college on your list. You can also stay on top of deadlines a little easier since you're managing it from one website. But there are a lot of universities within Georgia that are pretty popular, including some HBCUs that are on here that accept the Common App. And if you're looking for out of state, there's 900 plus colleges on there. And that's actually not even just nationwide, it's globally. They have colleges from the UK, from the Czech Republic, all over the place on the Common App. So if you're interested in particular colleges, I definitely suggest going on there and browsing at commonapp.org to get the information of whether the colleges that you're interested in participate in the college app. And some other things to know is that you're still going to be required to complete your college of interest extra steps. So if your college uses the Common App, they still might have supplemental forms required that you would have to submit to them according to your college's instructions. So don't think of the Common App as a complete one and done. You still need to be aware of what requirements are for your specific college of interest. And if the Common App doesn't ask for it there, it still needs to be submitted somewhere. So being aware of what that process is and being in communication with your college's admissions so that you know where you're at and what you need to get done. One other perk of the Common App is that they have access to virtual counselors. You can explore different videos and tips and read expert advice from the Common App's virtual counselors. And that's information that would be helpful for any college that you're applying to with other resources available there as well. Not all colleges do use the Common App, so be aware of whether your school that you're interested in participates in it, and use the application and instructions required by that college that they use on their own for their own application and admissions. And also, I would make note, if you're tracking all of this, what websites and systems you're using to complete the applications. So if you are going a different route and using the Common App to apply to a few of these schools, taking note of that so you know where to track everything is going to be important too. So when you get your answers back from schools, sometimes they're not always the giddy excitement of acceptance letters. Sometimes you're getting denied, and rejection does hurt. Being denied from college admissions is a tough experience. And whether you receive a one-page rejection letter or an email that just says no, that we can't bring you in right now, just remember that it's not the end of the world. And it might be hard to understand that in the moment, even if it's your dream college. You have to kind of work past that disappointment and choose another college. You know you're still capable of doing great things in college and beyond, regardless of being denied from a school, even if that is your dream school. Try not to take it personally. I promise you're not the only one who received that letter, and it can be hard not to feel that way, especially if you're seeing other friends being accepted into programs that they are excited about. But it's not the end of it. Many students get denied, especially if you're going into competitive elite programs and colleges. But be sure to still celebrate those acceptance letters that you do receive and embrace the colleges that did accept you. Now, there are those situations where students might have received where they were denied from all the colleges that they applied to. And that's unfortunate, but it also means that there's still options out there for you. You can consider attending your local community colleges for a year and then transfer. Maybe there was certain academic requirements that you didn't just quite meet yet. And that happens. You can go to a technical school or a local community college, get your GPA up, get the credits that you need to make your application stronger, and try again. Transferring is still possible at any point in your college experience, so don't feel like getting denied when you're initially applying is a no, that's never going to happen. You can still make it happen and just make the decisions you need to and take the steps you need to get accepted into that school. Now, for students that are waitlisted, getting waitlisted usually means that you've met the requirements, but the college is already at capacity for the amount of accepted students that they can bring in and that they have room for. So essentially, if someone declines their acceptance, you could be offered admissions. Part of the process of being waitlisted is deciding if you want to stay on the list. So that is something that keeping your spot makes sense if it's a school that you really want to attend, but finding out if they have any waitlisting conditions, and some examples of that might be that they have fewer housing options. They might have fewer housing options and financial aid options if you're waitlisted. So if you decide to stay on that list, you need to really be prepared to attend your backup college. And that doesn't mean that you won't make it off the wait list. It just means that you can't completely rely on it. So if it's getting close to May 1st and you need to make a decision soon, you need to make sure that you're sending in the necessary information to your backup college, because it's better to have an admissions out of college, even if it's not your first choice, than to wait and wait and wait and never get taken off of the wait list. And then you're wondering what your next steps are going to be, if you're going to be able to go to any of the colleges that you wanted to go to. So it's better to still take a chance on your backup college instead of taking a chance and sitting on the wait list. Some to-dos that you might want to keep in mind while being waitlisted would be contacting admissions to find out where you are on the list, because being 38 versus being 380 is going to feel a little different and help you know what kind of extremes you're in as far as the tasks that you might need to complete and how to get ahead of things and make sure that you're on track. It also might give you a little more hope or give you the reality check that you need to keep pushing and go on to the next. But also sending a letter, making a case for why you should be admitted is a step that students can take, especially if you're not too far down on the wait list. And when you're doing that, you can request another review. And you can also remember that you weren't fully turned away, so don't take it as a rejection. Many students weren't even as fortunate, they might have gotten denied. So though it's unfortunate that you are on the wait list and you might not get into the school that you were dreaming of this whole time, it doesn't mean that you didn't do what you were needed to do, and you still have the chance and you still have many opportunities. And so another important part of the application process that a lot of students might get stumped on is letters of recommendations. And a lot of that usually comes down to the who, when, and how to ask. So when you're thinking about who to ask for recommendation letters, usually you want it to be someone who is like your favorite teacher, your favorite coach, or your favorite employer, boss, supervisor, and hopefully that sentiment is mutual. And then you would ask them. If not, your math and English teachers are usually a good teacher to ask, especially if you've done well in their class, even if it's not your favorite subjects. If you've done well in their class and they can attest to you being good in class participation, their personal interactions with you, and your work on the subject, then that's still someone that could be a good resource to you. I would suggest asking someone that you've at least known for a year, so that they have enough to speak on about you and enough experiences to fill a recommendation letter with valuable insight into who you are and your work ethic. It doesn't really matter what your particular outcome for the job or subject is, but it does matter that they know how much work that you put in and the improvements that you made and the obstacles that you might have overcame in that class. So even if, like I said, even if math or English wasn't your best subject, but that teacher can attest to the hours that you put in to meeting with them, to tutoring, to doing what you could to overcome any obstacles in that class, that's still going to provide a strong recommendation letter for you. And then when it comes to how to ask, it's important to remember that letters of recommendations are not a requirement of your teachers. It's not a part of their job description. It's not an obligation. It is a favor from anyone that you ask it to. So be respectful of what you're asking them to do. Don't demand anything from them. But don't be shy about asking. It's still important. It's still something that you have to take control of for your future. And you'll need letters of recommendations for college, potential jobs. So it's something to get comfortable with and familiar with, asking people to be ready to write some good stuff about you. And most of the times teachers are thrilled to assist you. And as long as you respect their other responsibilities and the time that it's going to take for them to write the letter. So one example of that is making sure that you ask in a way that if necessary, they can politely decline. And an example that I have typed on the screen is, do you believe you know me well enough? And do you have the time to write the recommendation letter for my application to whatever college? And both of these sentences are important because you don't want to ask a teacher who genuinely doesn't feel like they have anything to say about you. And you don't want to ask someone who genuinely doesn't have the time. So having that as a part of your questions is going to be important. One, to give them an out, because that's necessary, but also making sure that you're asking the right person that can actually write a good letter about you. And also making sure that you're giving them all the information that they need so that asking them to write a letter of recommendation isn't overwhelming for them. When to ask is usually recommended to do it at least a month before the deadline. I would say to give it even more time because you never know what other responsibilities those people have going on in their life. Excuse me. And also to give you enough time to remember to ask them if you need to, and to have the time to follow up. If your college is asking for the letters to be mailed, which isn't traditional anymore, but still happens, that means that they want that letter in their hand by the deadline. So you need to make sure that you have enough time for that teacher to get the information they need, write the letter, mail it off, and get it to the school in time. And a month is just a good safety zone that you don't really have to stress it as much, and you have time to get it done without so much pressure. But also keep in mind, if you're asking a teacher or someone who seems very popular with your other classmates, you might need to consider asking even earlier than you originally planned, because you might not be the only one that they're writing for. They might have 30 students to write recommendations letters for. So keep that in mind if you are asking someone that potentially is going to have a lot of seniors asking them for recommendation letters. Excuse me. Also just being aware that some teachers or counselors might have templates that they use, and that's fine. It's easy to still get a quality letter out of it, but they'll be able to put the extra time in it, and building some cushion time for the deadline that's provided from the college if excuse me, if they don't have something already prepared and they need to go from scratch. And then considering what to do next. It's really great to give your teacher, coach, counselor, whoever, something to work with. Like if you have a student resume or a brag sheet, they might only know that you improved your grade from a C to a B, and not that you stock shelves at the grocery store on the weekend, or you volunteer at the Boys and Girls Club after school, or that you're a first generation college student, that you participate in multiple clubs, sports, maintained a 3.5 GPA. They might not know all of these things about you to give you the praise you might want and a letter of recommendation. And realizing that them not knowing that does not make their letter of recommendation any less valuable or legit. They're still being honest. You're giving them a resume of the things that you've accomplished. Writing your own brag sheet just gives them more information about you that they can fill in the pages with and reflect on you more than what they might have experienced from you themselves. So I do highly suggest students making student resumes or brag sheets that they can give to those that they're asking, and realize that they'll be grateful for it. Because sometimes when you sit down to write those letters of recommendations, it's really hard to think of things, even if you spent years with that student. So being aware and having that ahead of the game kind of just helps your letter of recommendation that much easier to write. And also make sure that you don't forget to follow up prior to the deadline if they need any additional information. And though it might seem really old school to some, sending thank you notes afterwards still warms people's hearts, and it makes them even that much more excited to help you if you need it in the future. Really feeling appreciated of your thoughtfulness and that you cared about what they did for you can go a long way. And so usually I suggest asking in person, but if you want to go the route of asking through email, this is just a general sample of how you can ask. And it's very short, simple, straight to the point. Dear Coach Cooper, I'm applying to Kennesaw State and a letter of recommendation is required. Would you consider writing a letter for me? I have attached the instructions for the letter and my student resume. I hope you find both helpful. The deadline is November 31st. And please let me know if you have any questions or if I can assist you in the process. Sincerely, Christina Baird. It's short, simple, to the point. You gave them all the information that they need, going ahead and attaching any additional information that they might find useful, and they can say yes or no, and they already have everything that they need, and you can move forward with the process. But again, if you have access to a teacher or whoever you're asking, it is nice to usually go ahead and get that asked in person, not only because that seems more natural sometimes, but because you get a quicker response usually. But email also gives teachers a chance to reflect on it, decide if they can really do it, and get back to you too. So either is fine, but if you need a template or an example, this is something that's simple. And this can literally be what you say to them if you were to do it in person too. So I think that's it. Yeah, that is the end of the presentation. If anyone has any questions and wants to come off of mute or put anything in the chat, feel free to go ahead. For those who came in late, the recording of this will be going up on our YouTube channel too, so you will still be able to get all the information. And if you registered on the Eventbrite, you'll get the handout with all the information in it too, along with some worksheets to kind of help you work through the application process and figuring out what you need to do. It even comes with a little tracker tool that you can use too. So that should all come in the mail to those who pre-registered in a couple days. But yeah, If anyone has any questions or anything they want to come off of mute for or drop them in the chat, just let me know. And thank you guys. I'm glad that, go ahead, Lydia.
Yeah, I have a quick question. So
Mhm.
thinking about, well, college. So for a long time, when people ask me what college am I going to, I always say that I'm just going to go to the college that gives me the most money. But now that I've actually determined what I want my major to be, do you think that I should prioritize colleges who have my major more so, well, yeah, like give them priority over colleges who give me the most money but don't necessarily have the major that I'm looking to major in?
Um, I would say to focus on the school that has your major, mainly because if that's really what you want to do, you're going to end up potentially transferring anyways. But also know that even though you don't see the financial opportunity now, there's still constant scholarships that are available, whether that's within your school or within the community, so that you can still look for additional funding to help make that decision a little easier. Um, and you're a senior, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so yeah, you still have time to keep applying for scholarships. You might not get the same financial aid award from that school specifically, that the ones that have your major, but being able to continue to apply for scholarships is probably going to be your best bet. I used to tell people to go where financial aid was available because it is really important. But when you start getting, once you get through the first 2 years of regular classes and you get into your major, it's kind of, it defeats the purpose. You're going to end up transferring anyways. But you can still go to a cheaper, more affordable school for your first 2 years and then transfer. But I wouldn't say give up on the major just for the financial aid.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome. And that's essentially what I did. I went to a tech school for the first 2 years, and then I transferred to Kennesaw State. And I got additional scholarships and funding for that remainder part, but I didn't go into debt for my first 2 years at a school. So that's definitely an option. And a lot of students do that, actually. I think most of my friends were transfers here. So
Yeah, that's what my friends were telling me, like just the other, I think it was just yesterday. He said that he was going to go to a tech school or just a local college first because he's only going to be taking like common classes for like the first year or two. And so he was like, I don't know why more people don't do this. I'm like, yeah, you're
mhm.
right. So,
Yeah, the gen ed courses, like you can look at, if you're going to a USG school, then they're considered transferable. But if you go to a tech school, they do have a list that you can usually find on their website of what general education courses will be transferable to within the tech schools and the USG schools. If you go out of state, that's a different question. But most you can like speak with an admissions or an advisor on that campus, and they can kind of give you the leeway of or the idea of what classes will transfer. Your maths and psychologies and sciences are usually a given, but if you do like an elective class, that's kind of like the art of origami, that might not transfer, but most of your general courses will transfer between schools, and you can find out that information more definitely just by contacting them to see.
mhm. Alrighty. Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other questions? Um, well, that's all I have. I don't know if you guys might have received the email about the Grubhub, especially depends since the time that you both came in. Um, I don't know if that went ahead and went out, Cheryl, or
Neither of the attendees were on the list.
okay. I thought Lydia was.
No, ma'am, I'm looking at it. But I mean, I can add her. I can add them.
Okay. I see Lydia on here, so I don't know. I see Andrea, but she's not a Gear Up student from what it's showing. But yeah.
Okay, well. I think I have Lydia's information. She's attended some other workshops, so I can add her. I can do that. No
Okay.
problem. So what about is Andrea also a Gear Up student?
It has her listed as not inscribed.
No, I'm a parent. I'm listening for my son.
Oh.
No, I don't
Okay.
need 15 though. I'm fine. I'm here for the education. I need to learn as much as I possibly can.
Okay.
Okay.
All right.
Well, thanks for being here.
Thank you guys.
No problem. And since you were registered, so everyone who registered will also, I think I said this already, but just in case, we'll get the full recording and still get the worksheet and stuff in the mail. So that will still go out to you all with everything that we covered too. But if there's no other questions, that's it for me. I'm going to stop the recording.